everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here on the channel, we are going to be talking about 1998's Blade and its 2020 4K Blu-ray from Warner Brothers. So Blade was originally released back in 1998, is directed by Steve Norrington, but originally this movie was supposed to be directed by Ernest Dickerson. He's the one who brought this idea to New Line Cinema. He wanted to direct it. Ernest Dickerson worked with Spike Lee. He was the cinematographer on most of his movies, or all of his movies, up to Malcolm X in 1992. Then he went on to become a director himself. He directed such classics like Juice and Bulletproof, which I really like Bulletproof, but he wanted to get in the superhero film game way before superhero films were a cultural phenomenon that they are now. But they couldn't get the film made, and he went on to direct something else. Wesley Snipes, who was having a similar problem at Columbia Pictures, he wanted to make the Black Panther film, couldn't get it done there, so worlds collided, and we ended up with Blade. And Blade is a Marvel character. He's a vampire, a daywalker vampire. His mother died while giving birth to him, or so we think. And he inherited a lot of the vampire traits because she was bitten by a vampire as she was dying. That's pretty much what killed her. Or, again, so we think. He inherited all of these vampire traits, and he also doesn't have a lot of that baggage bringing him down. He can go out in the sunlight. He has all these abilities that other vampires don't have. Vampires have to hide in the shadows, hide at night, but he doesn't have to worry about that. But because he has such a vendetta against vampires, he's out there just trying to kill as many as he can, and he's teamed up with Chris Christopherson's character of Whistler, who himself has a vendetta against vampires. They killed his wife and daughter, so of course he wants to take out as many as they can, and as Wesley Snipes' Blade brings up, they have a good arrangement.
He makes the weapons. I use them.
Works out perfectly. But he has to worry about Stephen Dorff's character of Frost. He has this big plan to basically become the god of all vampires, and Blade has to stop him before it's way too late, and that's how we get ourselves a movie. And it's weird, I came to this movie without ever even knowing this movie. I saw this for the first time back in probably like 1999, 2000 on a 13-inch TV. I remember sitting in my cousin Matt's room. We put the VHS in at the time. We had known nothing about this movie, so I went into this completely blind. So one of the opening scenes of this movie is there's blood raining down in a club, and I had no idea what the hell was going on at the time, but it was shocking. The imagery was beautiful, and then Blade comes in and just starts kicking ass and taking names. You know, he kills the one vampire. He goes, yes. So, you know, it's kind of leaning into what superhero movies were at the time. You know, this is only a year after movies like Batman and Robin
It's a cold town.
and Spawn. And I'm one of the only people who like Spawn, but Batman and Robin really killed the Batman franchise, and superhero films just left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And I feel like that's why Blade is very much forgotten nowadays, because it is a classic superhero film. It's in my top 10 superhero films of all time. It tells a compelling story, and this movie is just beautifully shot. Everything is dark, amazing set design, great score. All of it is done so well. I mean, the editing can be a little choppy at times, but other times the editing all looks really good. All the actors in this movie are doing a great job. It doesn't feel like a cheesy superhero film like superhero films did at the time. You know, we're a few years before X-Men, so this kind of came out in a weird window where superhero films just weren't popular anymore. You know, we had that boom in the late 80s and early 90s, and then things started to get really turned down, and we hadn't really had a big one, and I feel like Blade just kind of got lost in the shuffle. Yes, it did start a trilogy, but looking back on it in 2023, 25 years later, it doesn't seem like many people still bring up Blade. Yes, we are going to get a reboot with Mahershala Ali. It's just going to be so hard to replace Wesley Snipes. He is perfect in the role. He's playing this role. You know, he's a tough guy, a cold character, but, you know, when he's out there killing, you know, he starts to turn on the cheese a little bit. He's out there just doing one-liners, and Chris Christopherson is doing one-liners, showing you what superhero films were at the time, but a little bit more serious. I think they found the perfect blend of cheesiness, action, and just telling a compelling story, because the story does get you involved in it. You definitely care about it the entire time. The pacing of this movie is just perfect. The story flies by. There's really no downtime at all, even in the moments when we get those warm-hearted moments between Wesley Snipes and Chris Christopherson, or Nabush Wright's character. When we get those moments, it still doesn't slow the movie down to a halt at all. Those moments are just as compelling as the big-time action sequences that are in this movie. But that's not to say that this movie doesn't have its flaws. It is a 1998 film. There's just a ton of bad CGI in this movie, and it's very noticeable. Like when the vampires turn into basically flying bat skeletons, that stuff just looks absolutely horrible. The characters, when they get this one thing shot into their head, they all of a sudden turn into those gusher characters from the 1990s. I mean, it just looks like late 90s CGI, exactly what you would think it would look like. It looks atrocious. It doesn't hold up well at all. And I guess that kind of takes me out of it a little bit, but not as much as other films. Nothing like the Star Wars films of the time or anything like that. It's just that, you know, it's very noticeable. It's very bad. I get it. In the late 90s, we just got CGI. It was starting to become a common thing, and everyone wanted to use it. But I think they just went a little bit too far in this movie, and it's very noticeable every time they use it. The film is good enough to overpower those minor flaws. I still enjoy this film. I watch it every single year. Like I said earlier, this is a top 10 superhero film for me. I just think that this movie moves along at a great pace. I even enjoy Blade 2 a lot. Blade Trinity, not so much, but Blade 2 is another phenomenal film. That one is directed by Guillermo del Toro. Feels like a Guillermo del Toro film in the Blade universe. Absolutely love that film as well. Maybe one day we'll talk about that. But Blade from 1998 is a stone cold classic, and Mahershala Ali has got some big shoes to fill in Wesley Snipes. I don't know if he could do it, but I will definitely be there because I just love the Blade character, and I absolutely love 1998's Blade. And if you haven't seen it, you're doing yourself a disservice, and maybe you want to go out and grab this 4K Blu-ray that came out back in 2020. But before we talk about that 4K Blu-ray, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, lists, podcasts, and shorts, we try to do them all here on the channel, and nothing would help this channel out more than by you just simply liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So here it is, 2020's Blade 4K Blu-ray, courtesy of Warner Brothers. This also had a 4K Steelbook come out at the same time. I got the slipcover edition, got it at the first day it came out. Absolutely love this 4K Blu-ray, and you can actually see it if you guys are fans of Warner Brothers and what they do with their 4K Blu-rays. That all is just in here. What they do currently, you can just see the origins of that in this 4K Blu-ray. It doesn't have Dolby Vision, it just has HDR10. A lot of Warner Brothers 4Ks, actually I think pretty much all of them only use HDR10. They have their own in-house tech, and I really do appreciate their in-house tech, speaking of, because the visuals all hold up so well. It really just fleshes out the colors, and the 2012 Blu-ray actually isn't too bad, and that's the one we get packed in here. So before I go too off the rails on the visuals, let's look at the packaging. So you slide it off, same artwork underneath, nice artwork at that. You come inside, your Blu-ray is black, your 4K is in that Blade red, that like maroon dark red, you know, blood red if you will, in there as well. You get yourself a brand new Dolby Atmos track on this 4K. Awesome Dolby Atmos track. Now, the previous Blu-ray actually has a good audio track on it, but this Atmos track is just really good. There's certain scenes in this movie, because this movie is very atmospheric, where Blade's car is driving down the road, and you can see the papers flying around, and those papers sound like they're flying around your room. That's how well mixed the Dolby Atmos track is. You know, it's an action-packed movie, so everything is just coming in crisp and clear. Even the dialogue is mixed really well. You don't have to worry about the volume at all. You can just set it at what you want, put your remote down, and you can just enjoy the film. So it's a great Dolby Atmos track. I don't know if it's reference quality, but it's definitely a great Atmos track. So it's also Dolby True HD 7.1 compatible. You know, it's also got a couple other audio tracks on there in different languages, which I always appreciate when they do things like that. All of your extras are going to be on your Blu-ray disc, but you also have 2 commentary tracks on the 4K disc, so it's pretty cool that they gave us those options. And as far as the extras go, you know, there's a couple good ones in there, but there's just not many of them, and they're old featurettes, definitely ripped from a DVD. You could just tell by the quality of them, which is a very, very low quality. You know, it's just very pixelated. It doesn't look great, but you get some good stuff in there, and I definitely always appreciate that. It's just not anything new, anything that's even been recorded recently. It would be really cool to get some interviews with actors like Wesley Snipes. I heard Chris Christopherson isn't doing too well lately. I mean, the guy's in his 80s, so it's understandable, but I would love to get an interview with him as well. Always find it so fascinating how he is in these movies, because he's just doing such a great job. Chris Christopherson, you know, he was a country singer turned actor, and he does such a good job acting. I always appreciate it when he pops up. But I would just love to get interviews with the entire cast. Stephen Dorff, it would be cool to see what he thinks about this, especially since, you know, he worked with Mahershala Ali on True Detective Season 3. It's pretty funny that he was also in the first Blade with Wesley Snipes, so he has that Blade connection. I would love to get his thoughts, pick his brain for a little bit. Would have been cool to get some new extras. But the shining star is definitely the visuals, and the previous Blu-ray really wasn't that bad, and it makes me wonder if it's the same exact scan. Now, this was shot on 35mm film, so they definitely are using some DNR in the 4K, and I think Warner Brothers does this all the time just to eliminate a little bit of film grain. There's still a little bit there, but not much, but it's not like bad DNR. It's not like something you would see on Terminator 2 where they wipe it clean to the point where everything starts to look waxy. No, everything still looks natural. Everything still looks like real skin tones. They really just turned the brightness up, it looks like, from the previous Blu-ray, but it does look like the same scan. It's just a lot brighter and the blacks are a lot deeper. You know, that's one thing about Blade, the way it's shot. Everything is supposed to look dark. The set design, it never has a sunny day in it. Everything's supposed to look like cloud and just dreary, and they capture that perfectly in this 4K. When there are colors on the screen, whether it be the blood, that stuff just comes popping out at you. It all looks dynamic. It all looks great. Everything looks realistic, natural. Nothing looks fake and artificial unless it's intentional, except for that CGI. And 4K is definitely not doing 90s CGI any services. It definitely makes it look a lot worse. We saw this earlier in the year with the core on 4K. It's just exposing all those flaws where you probably, at the time in 1998, that was the new tech. You weren't thinking 20 years down the line that we were going to have new tech that was just going to expose all those flaws. So it's understandable that 4K is enhancing all this other stuff, but it's also going to enhance the negatives as well as the positives. So it's understandable that that would be there. But again, the visuals are just great. I wouldn't say 10 out of 10 visually, but it's getting pretty damn close. I think this is, like I said, I really do love what Warner Brothers does with their 4Ks. They definitely do this stuff in-house. I definitely think that they just have the perfect enhancements to their 4Ks. Whatever they're doing, I love their tech. I love it. I think that they just put out some of the best looking 4Ks. We saw this last year again with the Christmas 4Ks that came out earlier in the year with Training Day. Their in-house tech is awesome. I think they put out some of the best studio 4Ks. Not as good as like what Sony's doing, but they're definitely comparable like with Paramount. They just don't have the big misses that Paramount has. All of their stuff is consistently looking good, and this one is no different. So how would I rate this entire 4K Blu-ray at a score of 1 to 10? I would actually give this one a really solid 8.5 out of 10. I just would have liked some new extras, but the visuals and the audio are really good, and it's definitely cool to see that we get them packaging in the Blu-ray here still, which Warner Brothers has started to shy away from here in 2023, but back in 2020, that wasn't something you had to worry about. So you got the previous Blu-ray with its extras, which again, not much, but still pretty damn good. But anyway, guys, it's also Friday, and that means it's time for our digital code giveaway. In every single video that we put out on Friday, we are going to have a digital code giveaway, and that means that I am going to ask you guys 2 digital code giveaway questions. All you have to do is answer one in the comment section below. As long as you do that, you come back to Monday's video. I put your name on a magic wheel. We spin that wheel 2 times. The 2 names it lands on, they have their choice of the digital codes that you've seen on your screen before you today. And what are this week's 2 digital code giveaway questions? Well, we're talking Blade, and that means we're talking Wesley Snipes. I love Wesley Snipes. One of my favorite actors, especially from the 90s. White Men Can't Jump is one of the earliest movies I can ever remember seeing. My mom was a big fan of that. He's also in Major League as Willie Mays Hayes. So I wanted to know, what is your guys' favorite Wesley Snipes movie? Is it Passenger 57? Maybe it's Demolition Man. I'm a big fan of Demolition Man. That's the one universe I would love to go into because Taco Bell is the only restaurant left, and that's my favorite restaurant of all time. Also my favorite food of all time, over anything. Just absolutely love Taco Bell, so I would love to go to the Demolition Man universe. Hopefully that's something that they predicted to get true. And then I wanted to ask you guys, I figured, I always felt like Blade was a very underrated superhero, and I wanted your opinion. Who is the most underrated superhero of all time? Obviously, Batman and Superman, they're up there on the pedestals. With Spider-Man and Iron Man, like all that. Iron Man wasn't up there until 2008. Let's not forget that. That film made Iron Man a household name. He really wasn't that before that. But I want to know, what do you guys think is the most underrated superhero of all time? Make sure you guys let me know that in the comment section below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, get out in those streets, and tell your friends about us. And we'll be seeing you around.